Donc, avec nous aujourd'hui, nous avons 4 panélistes vraiment très intéressants venant de l'industrie, dont nous avons, en tant que Scalea, financé des projets. Je vais commencer par Sébastien Turcotte de Pratt Whitney Canada. Sébastien, peut-être tu peux mettre tout au bout. Ensuite, Heather Scott de Kruger. Welcome, Heather. We have also funded a very interesting project with Kruger. Isabelle Gaillou de MDA. Very interesting project also we have funded from MDA. Isabelle. And finally, Jack Chelkak from IVADO Labs, who is actually providing a lot of projects in there. So please, ladies and gentlemen, so there will be our panel in some minutes, and there will be a great opportunity for them to share about their experience of introducing AI in manufacturing. Quelques mots de Scalea. Comme ça a été dit, nous avons été créés en 2018 comme une des 5 super grappes d'innovation qui s'appellent maintenant des Global Innovation Superclusters. Nous avons été renouvelés dans le budget fédéral de l'année dernière jusqu'en 2028. Donc vous allez nous entendre encore pour plus de 5 ans, ce qui est une bonne nouvelle. Notre mission numéro 1, c'est de vous aider à financer votre transformation en introduisant l'intelligence artificielle. Donc notre mission, c'est d'aider l'introduction de l'intelligence artificielle pour aider à la productivité des entreprises et notamment dans les chaînes d'approvisionnement. Ça, c'est notre mission. Et pour faire ça, on est prêt à vous rembourser une partie des dépenses de vos projets. Donc, c'est déjà des chiffres très significatifs. Dans le premier mandat qui va s'achever dans quelques semaines, nous avons financé 90 projets aujourd'hui. En fait, on sera à plus de 100 projets financés à la fin de notre premier mandat. La valeur totale de ces projets va dépasser les 500 millions de dollars. C'est beaucoup d'argent en intelligence artificielle. Il faut considérer qu'un cas d'utilisation en intelligence artificielle, un use case, c'est à peu près 1 à 2 millions de dollars. Donc quand on a financé pour 500 millions de dollars de valeur de projet, ça veut dire qu'on a financé entre 250 et 400 use cases d'implémentation concrète d'intelligence artificielle dans des industries. Donc on est loin de quelques projets par-ci par-là, on est maintenant dans une logique d'introduction massive de l'intelligence artificielle dans les industries. Sur ces 500 millions de dollars de valeur de projet à terme, nous-mêmes, Scalea, nous aurons investi plus de 170 millions de dollars, donc à peu près un tiers de la valeur des projets. Donc vous voyez qu'on parle de beaucoup d'argent pour vous, pour les entreprises, pour vous aider à vous transformer en intelligence artificielle. Donc la façon dont on procède, c'est très simple. Vous nous proposez des projets, on les valide, et une fois qu'on les valide, on les suit tous les trimestres, et on vous rembourse vos dépenses à hauteur du pourcentage qu'on aura déterminé ensemble lors de la discussion sur le projet. Voilà. Donc c'est ce qu'on fait Scalea, et la bonne nouvelle, c'est qu'on va continuer à faire ça pour encore 5 ans. Donc il n'est jamais trop tard pour bien faire. Si vous n'avez pas encore de projet en intelligence artificielle, il est temps pour vous d'en faire. Nous avons un stand ici, en fait juste par là-bas, avec des gens de l'équipe qui sont là, notamment Mariam, Isabelle, Marc, qui sont là pour vous accueillir, pour parler avec vous de projets et pour discuter avec vous des projets qu'on pourrait financer dans le cadre de Scalea. Alors n'hésitez pas à venir nous voir. Donc voilà ce que je voulais vous dire très rapidement sur Scalea. Je pense que ce qui est surtout plus important, c'est qu'on discute des cas concrets d'implémentation d'intelligence artificielle dans les chaînes d'approvisionnement et dans le manufacturier, notamment autour de 4 projets, enfin 3 projets plus IVADO Labs qui en a fait de multiples, que nous avons financés, et tous ces acteurs-là vont pouvoir vous dire concrètement comment s'est passée l'introduction de l'intelligence artificielle dans leurs opérations. So perhaps I will go left and then right. So perhaps Heather will begin with you. So I think it will be very interesting. So Kruger, I think everybody knows Kruger, at least is using your products. We have funded a very interesting project for Kruger because Kruger has built a totally new manufacturer in Sherbrooke, fully digitalized, and Kruger has decided to implement AI in this manufacturing. So Heather, I think it would be great if you could explain to all these people what was this project and why you decided to do AI in this Kruger factory.
Sure. So, as Julien said, we started up a brand new state-of-the-art facility in Sherbrooke, and that's where we decided to start. So we were in a situation, we were completely sold out. I don't know if you all remember 2 years ago, the toilet paper hoarding event really helped us get our project off the ground. We were sold out. We couldn't start the equipment up fast enough, so it was a really good time for us to get in and increase productivity at that facility. We knew that we had the data to do it because it was brand new. It was built with the proper data systems, the integration that we needed. And so we just got started, and we started with one use case designed to help the line start up faster right after a SKU change or brand change, so we could get up to target speed and make more volume out of that facility. We dipped our foot in, we saw some promising results right off the bat, and then we jumped right off the deep end. So we started with that one use case. We now have about 8 in place at that particular facility, and now we're ready to continue throughout 2023 with more use cases, more value, and we're continuing to measure really good business results based on that.
Could you explain perhaps 1 or 2 use cases when you decided to use AI in your factory?
Sure. So one of them was around center lining, which is really, how all of the set points for the equipment work together. And it's really, when you think about it, each thing on the equipment has a proper setting for each product that we run. But on one line, there's 5,000 to 10,000 settings. So when you look at the possible combination, it's endless. And so having a process engineer or somebody like that try and find the best parameters to optimize volume and quality, it's a full-time job for more than one person. But with these algorithms, we're able to set those targets very quickly using data science. Not only set them by SKU, but by speed and all the other parameters that go with it. So as we ramp the line up in speed, some of the targets need to change, and that's not something we were able to attack with a typical engineering tool, but with these use cases, we've been able to go after it. Another example in pulp and paper is sheet breaks. We get a lot of sheet breaks, and it can take up to an hour to clean it up when the sheet breaks, and we've been able to predict, based on the data we have in manufacturing, if the sheet is going to break in converting, and we're really able to take advantage of that and stop the break from happening in the first place. And so we've seen productivity really increase in those areas.
Great. Sébastien, so Sébastien, français, on va faire en français, comme ça on va alterner.
As you wish.
Donc Sébastien, Pratt Whitney Canada, 65 000 moteurs, je crois, en activité dans l'aviation, très grosse entreprise au Québec, à Longueuil. Énorme projet en intelligence artificielle. Est-ce que tu peux nous décrire quel est ce projet que Pratt Whitney fait en intelligence artificielle?
En fait, le projet qu'on a fait, c'est d'être capable de prévoir ou prédire la consommation ou le besoin de pièces de rechange pour les 65 000 moteurs en service à travers le monde, dans 200 pays en opération. Fait que c'est assez difficile de prévoir le bon niveau d'inventaire et on a de la pression à réduire les inventaires, à augmenter les taux d'inventaire. Donc, le but, c'était d'améliorer le forecasting ou la prévision de consommation des pièces. Après ça, l'optimisation des niveaux d'inventaire avec le bon niveau de safety stock de sûreté. J'imagine en français, on utilise le terme safety stock dans nos entrepôts, dans nos centres de distribution. Puis ensuite de ça, le dernier lab qu'on va commencer au mois de décembre, c'est celui de la consommation. Donc, regardez quand le moteur vient en atelier, quelle est la meilleure solution pour réassembler le moteur, parce que les moteurs d'avion sont démontés au complet, désassemblés au complet, et les pièces ont besoin d'être soit réparées, échangées avec des pièces usagées ou remplacées par des pièces neuves. Puis on veut avoir l'algorithme qui va nous aider à choisir la meilleure recette pour rencontrer l'objectif qu'on a besoin pour ce moteur-là spécifique pour le client, soit d'améliorer le temps de rotation, le turnaround time du moteur, ou de diminuer le coût de la facture, ou diminuer le coût pour l'entreprise pour augmenter la marge.
Excellent. Isabelle, so we're going to talk about this time MDA. So MDA, satellite manufacturer, one of the biggest in the world. We were very interested when we had to fund this project because it was really the opportunity to be a game changer for the industry, coming from one big satellite to hundreds of satellites. So can you explain why you decided to integrate AI in your value chain and what to expect from this?
Merci, Julien. So as Julien said, space is blooming, is completely changing. We used to do one-offs, and now we're doing constellations. Typically, in a year before, we were launching 10 projects in orbit, and just last year we launched 250. So this changed significantly the way we were doing things. So we have currently two projects ongoing. One is for inventory optimizers. So how can we align the material supply with the production plan by considering not just what an MRP would consider, but on-time delivery of suppliers, quality, the market trends. We've seen supply chain going completely bizarre in the last year. So when we see what's coming and the past doesn't say that yet, how can we inject this into the calculation and also inventory constraints? So this is a massive amount of data, so we're hoping that AI will help us get more accurate messages so that our procurement team can have the parts delivered on time. Our second project is more geared towards design. So we have some parts that have RF performances. So sometimes parts will be within the targeted performance, but sometimes they'll be just outside of this. They'll be acceptable, but not within the target. So AI will help us combine those parts together so that the assembled product will meet the performance requested, but not individually each part. So this will help us maximize the use of maybe less compliant parts and minimize waste.
So very transformative projects, basically using AI. So, and finally, for the first round of questions, I'll go to Jack. So Jack is from IVADO Labs. IVADO Labs is one of the biggest consulting providers of AI solution in Canada and in Montreal. Has done multiple projects with Scale AI. So Jack, you have a different perspective because you are not the one operating, you are the one building the solution. So what can you say about in the different projects you operated or you built solutions, the type of usage you saw in different industries?
So since our inception 4 years ago, we created over 50 projects. And 50 projects that are enterprise grade are being used in operations. And so we have seen the entire range of projects that can be done, various levels of maturity in terms of companies who are embarking on this journey, companies who had sometimes no data. So during the pandemic, we saw a lot of projects where people wanted to do something, react, but there was no data that we could actually use for models because we were seeing something I've never seen before. So we had to do data augmentation, all sorts of things. So we kind of seen the entire range, but what I want people to remember is if you haven't done an AI project, think of it in two simple terms. One is prediction and the other is optimization. So most of the examples that were mentioned here today cover those two, right? Like for instance, the paper breaking, you want to predict when this could potentially happen. When you're reassembling the engine, you want to optimize which parts are you going to be using. And same thing for, again, predicting how many of the parts will be good enough to be used. So we see this very often, and you can take pretty much any AI project and narrow it down to those two simple terms, even though there's a lot of complexity underneath. So, because let's say you take a driverless car is doing two things. Predicting, is it gonna have an accident? And then optimizing a path from point A to point B on how to get there. You can always now, so think about it in those terms when you look at objectives or problems that you encounter in your company.
Merci, Jack. We'll come back to all the issues companies are facing to build AI solutions. So actually, that would be my second set of questions. Mon deuxième type de question, c'est vraiment, OK, vous avez entendu parler des projets en intelligence artificielle. Maintenant, ce qui est intéressant de discuter, c'est quelles ont été les difficultés ou les choses qui ont été faciles à faire dans ces projets. Et les trois compagnies ont chacune travaillé avec un prestataire extérieur pour les aider. Donc, c'est ça maintenant qu'on va essayer d'aborder. So, Heather, you build your solution with a big consulting company. If you want to name it, that's fine. And why did you choose to work with somebody external? And what were the easy things to do and the most difficult things to do in your project?
So we chose to work with one of the big consulting companies really just to get us started. I mean, we knew not a lot in this space when we were starting. So it was, you know, come in, help us get started. And since then, we've built our own internal team. So our reliance on the big companies are less now. Like, we still continue to work with, you know, some of the local universities, U Laval, Polytechnique, a lot of other partners, but our reliance on the big ones are now much less than it was a year ago. So we're maturing in our own journey, which is great, and we feel good about that. The successes, I mean, we're learning and we're growing our own team and we're starting to get more of a demand for the products that we've built. So, as you go through building them, you feel like you're constantly iterating and your customers want more and more. But you get to a point now, and I think we're there, that, places within our network that don't have these tools want them. And so that's also a good place to be because our product is in demand. Challenges, there's still people that don't believe in this technology. They're a little bit more old school in their thinking, and they don't believe that we need technology to get better. And that's okay, to be honest. I'm comfortable with that. Not everybody has to be on the bus, but I'm not going to let them stop us. So, it really becomes a challenge for us to show them the power of technology as we move forward and just not hold back because of it. So we spend a lot of time with our stakeholders. We've organized our team in a way that we're about 2/3 on the tech side and 1/3 on operational excellence, change management, stakeholders. And I would absolutely recommend that, because making sure you bring the organization along on your AI journey is super important. And so we've been really successful in that area, but it's not easy. Definitely still have some people that are waiting to say, I told you so, but we're going to make sure that doesn't happen and that day doesn't come. And there'll be some use cases that don't work, and that's okay too, right? We're learning, and as long as we have more wins than losses, then we're ahead of the game.
Thank you. So, Sébastien, Pratt Whitney aussi a travaillé avec une autre grande firme de consulting. Tu peux la nommer si tu veux. Là aussi, ce qui serait intéressant, c'est pourquoi vous avez décidé de travailler avec quelqu'un de l'extérieur au début. Puis pareil, qu'est-ce qui a été facile et quelles ont été les principales difficultés auxquelles vous avez fait face chez Pratt Whitney?
L'objectif de travailler avec un consultant externe, c'était de nous aider à établir les fondations, de mettre en place un centre d'excellence, un COI pour AI avec les capacités, mettre les work streams pour le data, agile delivery, tech stack, talent, puis mettre les fondations pour s'assurer du succès et de faire un suivi régulier avec nous. Ensuite de ça, ils nous ont coachés aussi, puis ils nous ont supportés techniquement aussi dans la réalisation du projet qu'on est en train de faire avec la prévision pour les spare parts. Et effectivement, en change management, on a eu aussi beaucoup besoin d'aide. On a 50% de l'équipe qui est sur le change management. On applique du AI ou de l'intelligence artificielle sur la performance du moteur. On a des sensors sur nos moteurs, comme vous pouvez vous imaginer. Puis on essaie de prévoir et de prédire des problèmes moteurs. Puis on a créé une équipe il y a quelques années qui fait ça. Mais quand on a créé cette équipe-là, on a pris des gens qui s'en allaient créer ce nouveau modèle d'affaires-là. On n'avait pas nécessairement besoin de beaucoup de change management avec ces gens-là qui avaient le bon profil, l'attitude, puis qui voulaient exactement arriver à la même objectif que le projet. Là, ce qu'on est en train de faire, c'est qu'on prend un processus d'affaires traditionnel, puis on essaie d'appliquer l'intelligence artificielle à un processus qui est spare part forecasting. Fait que c'est des gens qui faisaient la planification sur des fichiers Excel manuellement. Fait que le change management est super important, puis on le réalise effectivement. Puis c'est les endroits où on a eu besoin de support, l'établissement de la stratégie, les work streams pour s'assurer du succès, puis que ça soit soutenable dans le temps, le change management et évidemment le côté technique aussi.
Vous entendez la démo extrêmement important, some very important words, change management, learning, structure, business case. On reviendra là-dessus, but they are very important words in thinking about your AI projects. Donc, Isabelle at MDA, so you use actually IVADO Labs for your project.
Yeah, exactly. So we're partnering with IVADO Lab. For MDA, we don't yet have a center of excellence. We're still a small, big company, so we're still in the process of setting this up. We created a team helping us do this big transformation that I talked about earlier, but we didn't have yet the staffing or the expertise to lead this ourselves. So we've been partnering with IVADO Lab. The level of support that we've received from them is significant. I mean, we're dealing with professors from university, which is not something necessarily that we would have been able to attract due to the size, the number of programs that the project that we wanted to put in place. So the challenge that we've had, because we're still in the development phase, so we haven't yet delivered the projects, is really we're going to a cloud infrastructure. So this is really one of the biggest challenge that we've had, structuring this cloud, because we have security constraints, so this adds another layer of information, and also the lack of data. Because every project for us is different, it's a new design, so we don't necessarily have like a product with a stable bill of materials. Everything is always new. We needed to create fake data, synthetic data. So taking historical data and then trying to extrapolate it to say, okay, if I don't have data on this specific case, use those rules so that you can end up having some level of information so that the model can work. So that was, I think, the two biggest challenge, but also aligning on the vision, going from a vision to a detailed project. We've been having so many discussions. 1 minute, everybody is aligned and is understanding the same thing, and then 5 minutes later, we need to re-clarify because the definition, the end state has changed from the discussion. So this we've had up and downs. I think right now we're good, but it's been a challenge for us, like aligning on this.
Merci Isabelle. So Jack, you did a lot for 50 projects. Usually, when you talk with your customers, what are the major issues you face? And I'm sure you are going to talk about data and talent, but perhaps I'm wrong. So issue you face, and what's usually working well in the discussion with customers?
So a lot of the things that are mentioned here are across pretty much all companies. You always see a mix of this. One is change management, data availability, and that means not only having the data, but being able to use the data. Those are two separate topics that are very important to raise. The change management path is not always obvious, right? Because this is something that is new for a lot of people. Sometimes they're not asking for it. They are happy with the current state, but once you start investing in it, you start to reap rewards eventually, and it starts creeping up on you, and then it's at a certain point exponential because you start taking it for granted that this thing is working, and maybe you didn't believe in it in the beginning. And that's what we're seeing with the clients that we've been together for 4 years. Like when they started, same issues. Like we didn't have talent internally at the client side, right? The people who would be working with had big ideas, right? But then when it comes to making it happen, well, you gotta have the right prerequisites in place. So the case has to be very clear at the beginning about the objective that you want to achieve. How you get there, there's gonna be a winding road to get there, but the objective has to be at least clear, and you have to have the backing of the stakeholders. If there's noise in the stakeholders, it's a bumpy road, and you gotta prove quickly value. So when you scope a project and you have a big objective, scope something that will create value in the short term, just to prove that this can work, and you get less of the noise in your organization. The other part is when you're investing in building AI, think of it as a capability for your company. It's not a toy, it's not a tool, it's not a thing that you're using inside of the company that is on the sideline. It should eventually get to the forefront because it will allow you to have a competitive edge if you pick the right use case, if you go after the right objective. And that's what we recommend to clients. Think of AI as a strategic decision. So it's a part of your strategic pillars. If you're doing it now, you will be really at the forefront because a lot of companies are still kind of ignoring it, not taking it seriously, doubting it, questioning. Companies that already started doing it, they're beyond that point, and they're thinking about how can I scale this capability now? How can I integrate it in all my operations? And those are the companies that are going to succeed down the road. And companies that don't adapt as much, well, they could potentially struggle a little bit, right? So take it seriously, at least explore it, and get started on one use case.
Merci, Jack. We'll come back to that in conclusion. So perhaps to close this panel, we'll ask each of you, what's your ultimate goal or what you want ideally to achieve introducing AI? So beginning with Kruger. So now you have fully digitized a new factory. What's the ultimate game for you introducing AI? What's your dream about AI for Kruger?
I don't know that I have an end game, to be honest, because technology is evolving. So I see this as like having people work at a higher level. So using tools, gamifying the job for people, making it fun. Manufacturing's not always the most exciting place to be, but if you use these tools and you make their lives easier, the whole journey is fun. But I see all of our sites becoming fully digitized and having these tools, and then really moving on to the supply chain. So smart warehousing, autonomous drivers. I mean, the possibilities are endless. I'm not worried about my team ever being out of work, I guess is what I'm saying. We've got a good 10 years in front of us from what we can see right now.
I think so. Jean-Sébastien, même question pour Pratt Whitney. Quel serait le rêve ultime à atteindre en termes de business en introduisant l'AI chez Pratt Whitney?
On a parlé de change management tantôt pour les gens qui étaient impactés par la solution qu'on est en train de mettre en place, mais il y a aussi les organisations de support, HR, ressources humaines, finances, l'organisation de DT qui livre des projets de façon traditionnelle. On essaie de les livrer en mode agile. On essaie de bâtir une solution à mesure qu'on avance en livrant des MVP ou des Minimum Viable Product, en amenant de la valeur rapidement. Mais c'est un concept complètement nouveau pour nous. Fait qu'il y a aussi tout le système de l'entreprise qui n'est pas nécessairement aligné avec ça. On est dans un modèle d'affaires traditionnel où on doit lever une demande d'investissement avec tous les détails de l'échéancier et quel va être le produit livré et la valeur qu'on va générer. Mais on ne le sait pas quand on fait du agile, on ne le sait pas quand on est en train de bâtir la solution, ce qu'on va découvrir. Fait que ça, c'est un des objectifs qu'on a. Puis le deuxième objectif qu'on a, c'est aussi que les gens aient la réflexion analytique dès le départ, dans leur day-to-day. Comprendre quel est le data aujourd'hui, qu'on ne récupère pas, les données qu'on n'accumule pas, qu'on aurait besoin dans 3 ans, dans 5 ans. On regarde les endroits où on a beaucoup de données présentement, mais on ne regarde pas où on n'en a pas et qu'on va peut-être en avoir besoin dans quelques années. 2 endroits.
Excellent. Isabelle, pour MDA?
Je dirais que pour MDA, c'est vraiment d'être capable de se positionner le plus compétitivement possible dans les nouvelles constellations. Donc, c'est un marché qui est super agressif, puis si on n'est pas capable dans nos soumissions aux différents clients, de montrer qu'on est capable de le faire plus efficacement à un meilleur coût, on ne pourra pas être un joueur dans ce secteur-là, qui est le secteur qu'on voit qui est en croissance en ce moment. Donc, c'est vraiment une direction clé où on veut s'en aller. Puis ces projets-là, entre autres, vont nous aider à l'atteindre. Donc, on vise vraiment la compétitivité.
So, Jack, you historically at IVADO Labs, in the very first day, you were doing a lot of demand forecasting and price optimization. And now things are moving gradually. How do you see AI projects going from demand forecasting to where? What's the new type of projects you really see right now in the market?
Well, that's a great point, by the way, because demand forecasting is like the gateway drug to AI, because it's the easiest one to get people on board with. Like, how can I improve my top line? How can I improve my margin, right? And then you start to discover, well, I have a bottleneck in production in this area. Now I got to fix it. I need something for that. Then it cascades. So depending on pretty much how far you want to take it, how much you want to invest, there's really no limit on how much you can improve your company and your operations with AI. But the part that is important, and I really like what is being mentioned, is you start with the first steps, where you're doing small things that are proving the value. And then you start building a bit of a team. And as you're mentioning, you're less dependent on your partners, and that means you have a better maturity in terms of AI inside of the company, and it's taken seriously. So then, I mean, when we're talking about constellations, you guys are basically competing with SpaceX potentially, right? So this is how far they're able to take it, because they have that mindset. So it's important to not constrain yourself to the realities that you face right now, right? So it's like a leap forward. Before, if we go 100 years ago, and somebody could explain to the first industrialist what you guys are doing now, it would have been like mind-blowing. And this is where AI can potentially take you, right? So if we look back at what is happening right now, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, this is like an inflection point a little bit. Because production, optimization, all these things are going to be taken for granted that they have to be optimal. It's going to be table stakes. Because if you're not using AI, what are you doing? So, I mean, everyone here, is an entrepreneur. They're thinking about how to improve their operations. But start thinking about how AI is going to be included in that. Because you guys are going to come up with the new ways of using AI, the new use cases. We're not going to be the ones doing it. We're going to be there to empower you, being the trusted partner, but then the rest is up to you. So I'll leave it on that.
Thanks, Jack. We still have some minutes. On a encore quelques minutes sur le panel. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions dans la salle avant de dire 2 mots de conclusion? Est-ce que l'un d'entre vous aurait des questions?
I was just wondering, change management came up a bunch of times, and I'm wondering if somebody could comment on why that's so important in the adoption of AI.
So one of our experiences is if people don't understand the tool, they don't use it. They'll very quickly revert back to how they were doing business before. And then we've all wasted our time and money and energy, and that's not what we want. So we want to make sure everybody comes along with us, understands where we're going, and wants to be part of the journey, so that it's used.
Maybe just another point on the change management for finance, for example. Sometimes we say we need to discover fast to fail fast, and at Pratt, failing is not a word that we're allowed to use. But we know that if we start 10 small projects, only maybe 2 will succeed and 8 will fail. But we're not used to this. So change management also in the way we think, in the mindset, and the culture change.
No, thank you all of you. So the only lesson I want you to really take from this panel is AI introduction is a journey. So it's tough. It's a journey with multiple steps. So the later you begin, the less you will have success. So beginning soon is the best way to learn, to fail sometime, but to learn and really to improve the way you do business. So take advantage of what we provide in terms of financial support, take lessons from these people, work with trusted third parties because they will help you to really drive your next transformation. So thanks a lot for the panel, thank you for your support, and have a great afternoon. Merci beaucoup.